Hi everyone, Astrid here. Welcome to AviArt Lesson 5. And in this lesson we're going to make our fortune tellers. So I've actually made one before. If you go back into the AviArt group and check out the original art, you'll see the one I made there, but I was a little lazy back then when I made it, and I just cut out the Avi's hands and placed it around the crystal ball, and of course the thumbs are in front. So this lesson is going to cover a few different things. I'm going to give you some tips on drawing, and I'm going to also give you some tips on different kind of background borders. Here it's kind of hard to see because the background is a dark color, but this is called a Romo effect, and it's not unlike when you can do the decorate your in the dress up or celebrity games, you can do the frames. There's one there called a Romo effect, so you'll see it's just kind of a gradient effect, and I'll show you how you can make that yourself. So I guess the first thing you want to do is collect your images, and again this is going to be basically a beauty shot or kind of, I guess, chest to shoulders area and up of your Avi, and you're going to want to style her with the hair and makeup to look kind of fortune teller ish, if that's a word. For inspiration, I always Google, like here in Google Images, I just put in fortune tellers, and you can kind of get an idea of how they dress, how they look. This one has kind of a cool headpiece on, and that one as well. I really love the ones that are like jewelry. Some of them wear like turbans and scarves, veils, so there's all kinds of different looks that could inspire you for this project. I thought there were some cool ones at the bottom here, but also just, you know, how to style the makeup and ideas like that. So take a look at that if you like. Also, you may want to search for images for your headdress pieces. I decided just to go with a turban style, and then I found an extra costume brooch piece of jewelry to put on it. And you will also want to get a crystal ball image. So, and I'm going to show you also a trick how to make the crystal ball look transparent. So let's start with our Avi image, and you can just go ahead and remove the background off of there and cut it out. And then from here I'm just going to bring in the turban. Okay, so just go ahead and whatever you're going to be using for her headdress, bring that photo in and place it on top of your Avi. If you sometimes get this, I'm not sure if you know what to do or how you import your images, but you have to rasterize the layer before you can work on it. So that was just right click on the turban layer and rasterize layer. And from here, what I usually do, because the background is kind of patterned, I'll just play around with the brightness and contrast of it. And you can always change this back. This is just more for getting the background out. And then with a pretty high tolerance of 30 and the magic wand, as long as you can see that it's not selecting any of the pieces that you want to keep, it just makes it quite a bit easier. So just while holding the shift key down, and I'm going to have to clean it up as well. I'm just going to hit delete. Let's just get rid of the Avi so you can see what's going on. And that makes it a little easier to clean up. Then I like taking the polygonal lasso tool, and just so I get a nice clean edge on something like this, I will just cut it out with this selection tool. And hit delete on your keyboard. And just bring the Avi into view again. And try to place the turban about where it would go. But as you can see here, I wanted it a nice dark purple color, kind of to go with her makeup. So image adjustments, hue, saturation. And when you just slide, actually if you just turn this saturation handle up a bit higher and slide the hue, you can tell which color you're going into. Here I'm into the purple tones. So I want it kind of dark. I'm just going to move the saturation down again. And I'm going to move the lightness down just to get a nice dark purple color. And that looks good to me. So click OK. And now I'm just going to want to size the turban. So I'm going to hit Control plus T on my keyboard. And while you hit the Control key, you can distort the image a little bit, but don't distort it like crazy or it's going to look unnatural. So just play around with it to fit it on your Avi's head. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out pieces there that look kind of funny. So again with the polygonal lasso tool, I'm just going to cut that right out. And straighten up this line here. And remember, on mine anyways, I'm going to be placing the brooch over there. So it should cover the hairline. A bit taller. Adjust it a bit more, and I think that looks pretty good. So now I'll just bring this brooch image into view that I found. And again, just right click on that to raster size it. And I'm just going to grab the magic wand. Maybe I'll adjust this a bit as well. See how that just nicely gets rid of some of those shadows? And a little easier to cut out, although it might be making the edges a bit too white. I think that's okay. Let's see what happens. Again, I went for a nice large image, so when you size this down to fit on the turban, a lot of the little mistakes you see at the large size are not noticeable. And that is why I like to work with large images, because you size them down and you don't have to be so fussy. So I'm just going to grab some of these little bits in there. I can't even tell if that's metal or, let's see, that looks okay. So I'm just going to make it nice and bright and playing with the hue saturation again. And Control T to adjust the size. I still want it to be kind of large. So I think that size looks good. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit so that it's kind of centered on her forehead. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a layer right above the Avi, and just with a black paintbrush, a soft brush, and at about a 12 pixel size, I'm going to just draw along here, along the edges of the turban and the brooch. And I'm going to apply just a very soft Gaussian blur. About like that. And that still looks too dark for me, so I'm just going to lower the opacity on this layer and see how it looks a little more realistic, like it's just popping up from her face. So that's about 47–50%, 47%. And I'm just going to call that layer shading. Okay, so now let's start with the crystal ball. If you find the image that you like, just go ahead and remove the background that it's on. And once you have that nice and clean and sized down to the appropriate size for your picture, then just, if you want it to look a little translucent, just duplicate that layer the crystal ball is on, and take the top layer out of view right now. Just by clicking on the little eye, it disappears. And on the bottom layer, let's just zoom in. And I don't know what your crystal ball looks like, if it's sitting on some sort of a base like this one, or if it's just plain or whatever, but if it's plain, then you don't need to worry about it. This would be more, I guess, if it's sitting on a base like this. And of course, I have a very complicated one because it's got all these jags in it, but I got this one on Google Images, so if you find it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out roughly the ball away from the base. And I'm doing this with the polygonal lasso tool. Okay, I'm just doing this as fast as I can. And hit delete. So now let's just bring that top crystal ball back into view. And on the opacity, let's just lower it a little bit. It won't need much, but this is about 77%. And that looks about right. So that's how you get a transparent crystal ball. Okay, so now let's talk about the hands. I have two versions of hands that I drew. And this is one of them. And I'm going to leave the image so you can use these drawings if you want. And the other one I did was these hands because I thought it would be cool to add some jewelry. So I found a couple of rings, cut them out, sized them down to fit her fingers. So you may use either one of those hands for your projects. I painted her nails red instead of purple just for another little punch of color. So you can go ahead and paint them whatever color you like. But I'm just going to show you where I got these hands from. It was actually from this image. And what I did is I ended up rotating them. So it looks like that because of the arms. I didn't feel like drawing the arms on there and blah, blah, blah. So, but here's a little tip for drawing. What you do is you're going to need a picture that's clear enough that you can trace from. Put a layer on top of it. Now I always use the medium skin color, so if you use the light or the dark, you're going to have to adjust accordingly. And then with the eyedropper tool, I just select the dark one for the line, and I just draw it like that, somewhere out of the way, so you can delete it later. And then I get a color of the shading, and add that to my palette. And then the lightest color. Again, that's with the eyedropper tool, and then with the paintbrush, I'm just creating my palette here. Then you kind of got to zoom in. And if it's something like hands, I just do one. I'll show you. So I just do one, and then I copy and paste it and rotate it, so I'm not doing both of them. But if you want to do both of them, that's up to you. With a hard brush, let's see, for the edge, probably about a 2 to 3 pixel. I'm going to do 3. And then you just start tracing. Oops, I didn't get the darkest color. There we go. Just start tracing the edge here. Okay, I just paused it while I continued to work on it, so you weren't too bored watching me. And now I'm going to show you a trick because to connect the lines here so that you can use the paint bucket tool to fill it in rather than drawing it all in the skin tones. So just make sure your lines are connected like so, and select that lightest color that most of the skin is, and with the paint bucket tool you can just now fill in those pieces so you're not drawing it all in. And I had some crazy lines here, so I'm just going to fix that up just with the paintbrush like this. And again, I'm drawing these hands way bigger than the Avi image that I use would ever be, so once I size it down, all these little funny lines, you won't even see it. And now you can fill in the nails with whatever color you like. I did that with a paint bucket tool, and for some shading around the nails, I would just take the soft brush. That's a little too big. Let's try 3. And lower the opacity here on the paintbrush color to about 25. And now you can just shade in those nails. If you want to take some white, lower it even more, maybe to about 10, and make it look like shiny polish. And there you go. So now with the darker shade here, you have to kind of think like how Roy Avi's are shaded. They're so it looks like it's part of the Avi. So here, oh, that's too light. Bring the opacity back up. So here I would just, draw in the palm. And this was the thumb shading here. And you can draw along the bottom of the fingers if you want to shade that as well. And then what I do, first I'm going to, if you're all done, just delete your palette. I just copy this, paste it, and with the edit, transform, and flip, there. Now I've got 2 hands. So, and then I pasted them in front of my image and rotated them. So that's how I did that. Okay, so now you just want to go ahead and import the background that you chose, and you can do any adjustments to the colors that you like. I'm going to make it a little, oops, I'm not on the right layer. Make sure you are. If you want to make it a little darker, a little brighter. You can do that here. So now for the Romo effect. I want to create the first Romo effect behind my Avi, but in front of the curtain. So I'm going to make a layer there. And I'm going to use black. And here by the paint bucket tool, if you click on it, the gradient tool is right above that. So with black selected, and of course, likewise, you could make, by clicking on any color on your foreground, that would become your gradient base color. Just draw the line from the edge to about the center, and as you play with it, you'll see it creates different looks if you do like a shorter one or longer ones. And depending, for this one I'm just going to do the edges, but if you would want to do the top and the bottom, you could do that as well. And then what I like to do is go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. You can see how it's pulling the solid color back a little bit, but still giving a nice soft gradient frame to the curtain. And okay, and then you can still kind of play around on that layer with the opacity level just to get it how you like it. I think I like mine at about 80%. So that's a Romo effect. So now you can go ahead and place your hands, add jewelry. As always, add your own unique touches, your own spin. And when you're all done, upload it into the AviArts project section of the group. And I can't wait to see your fortune tellers. Hope you have fun. Thanks, everyone.